Welcome to Marketers I Love. My name is Rachel Klaver, and today I'm working with talking to one of my very favourite marketers in the entire universe, Johny O'Donnell.
Hey Rachel, how are you?
I'm really good. So Johny has an agency in Motueka. He is amazing. I described him, as we were talking before, as the polymath of marketing. He's got this brain that just has amazing ability to expand and explore concepts around marketing. He's someone that I highly back and rate as a marketer and as a general nice human being. And we're going to talk a little bit about marketing and what he's thinking about it and why he doesn't call it marketing anymore. Is that right, Johny?
It's a good place to start, and for what it's worth, the feeling's mutual, Rachel.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I've been coming into 2020 thinking about working with our clients and talking to them about marketing. One of the things that's always frustrated me about the way people approach marketing is they think of it all along the lines of acquiring a new customer or a new client. And then the marketing process tends to stop there. So people are willing to invest and give a lot of love to their potential customers up until the point that they become a customer, and then the love stops there. And we know
that is so true. Can I ask you a question about that too? Do you think changing that idea that it's not marketing helps people stop trying to sell in every message?
Exactly, and we think about Gary Vaynerchuk always talks about this, and it really resonates with me. Social media is not about social media platforms anymore. The word social is about how you should approach all of your marketing. And in an age where we've got more choice than ever before, we've got more commercial messaging and advertising coming at us than ever before. The ability to communicate and resonate and build rapport with your target market has never been more important. So I just encourage our clients to think about it as communications, because then it doesn't stop when you've got the customer. That's where it really ramps up. Actually, your communications are from start to finish. And to communicate effectively, the prerequisite to be able to communicate effectively with someone is to understand them. And that's where everyone should start with their marketing. You need to understand the customer almost better than they understand themselves.
That's interesting, because I was reading something someone else put yesterday on LinkedIn, and he was talking about how, what do salespeople need? And a couple of us started talking about it on the thread and talked about how we don't prep a lot for sales meetings. Like, we go in and we don't prep it, and people often get upset with us when we don't do that, because they go, don't you want to work with us? And I'm like, I need to hear what you think about the business and hear your words, because your words is often very different to what your current communication or marketing message is, and I need to hear where that is, and then I'll go and have a look at your marketing.
Totally.
And that's kind of what you're saying as well, isn't it?
Exactly. And I think what excites me about the future of marketing, there's a lot of fear and anticipation about what's coming on stream and how much marketing is changing. I think people are feeling overwhelmed. But at the heart of the changes we're seeing, the most effective strategy now is to stop selling and just start helping people. And that's what you're talking about, right? Going into these meetings and going, actually, is there an opportunity for me to help and serve you here, which typically turns into a sale, because if you're finding yourself in places where you're adding value, you're more likely to get sales, and where business will follow for you. And I think that applies to any business today. If you lose that sales mindset, I think there's a lot of fatigue out there now with the level of kind of advertising and commercial messaging coming at us. There is fatigue around selling, and when you've got 3,000 commercial messages a day, I love this stat, you've got 3,000 commercial messages a day coming at you, but we only have the capacity to notice 80, and we can only respond to 10.
That is I'm writing that one down, because that's great. I love that. And that is true, isn't it?
It is true, and that's why tactics and channels and everything, that the people get obsessed with what's the next best thing, what's the latest, and that's where the state of overwhelm comes from. But actually, it doesn't really matter what the channel is, because the right creative and the right communication always wins anyway. And if you're competing for the attention of someone that's got 3,000 commercial messages coming at them, then it's no longer about the channels. We've got Facebook now that's at max ad load. You're competing for real estate all the time. We're in an age where it's easier than ever before to reach your customers, but what people are finding is that it's harder than ever before to get their attention. And we're still focused on how to reach them. All the conversation in digital marketing at the moment in particular is still so focused on just how to get through to them and what the right channel is. Whereas actually to get cut through, to get noticed, to get people's attention, and to turn them into customers, you're going to actually have to work out how to communicate with them in such a way that gets their attention. And that's what I think people should be focusing on.
Now, I know you don't like talking about tactics as much, but I think one of the things that you and I do that's similar, that is a tactical thing, and I've actually just done a case study about one of our clients. So you worked a lot with tourism market. I work quite a lot with e-commerce and retail, and they both have some similar elements in that quite often we feel like we've got to sell, it's a product, right? So we're selling a product. But when you shift from selling a product to selling a information sharing and well, not selling, but communicating information sharing and communicating that, it allows people to build trust with your brand in a way that helps people to become more invested in what you're doing, and then will come and see you when they're ready. Yes?
Totally.
And that's where marketing automation and, funnels, I hate that word actually. I think a funnel is such an awful word personally, because a funnel has this idea that it's a slippery slide down to a sale, and no one acts that way. Like occasionally that's lucky for you. Most of the time I think it's like a web, and you pull down the web and it's a sticky point each way and kind of stops them along the way. But I think that's what you're saying is a conversation, and communicating with the person that you're talking to is about, you start with a low level of intimacy, like, hey, how's your day going? And then it's like, oh, what sort of coffee do you like? And then it's like, how's your family? And then it's like, how do you really feel today?
Yeah, exactly. And if I think about some of our tourism clients, we've been through that process with them. One of our clients, they had 54 different trips on offer across all of their brands. And to arrive on the homepage and start selling someone a trip immediately just makes absolutely no sense. But that's what everyone's been taught, right? We actually, there are some steps in that process where we need to get to know that person. Are they a family? Are they a couple? Are they looking for romance or adventure? Are they looking for relaxation or fitness? We need to understand these things before we start selling to them. And being standing out from the crowd and being the one who actually takes the time to do that through whatever channel it is, doesn't matter whether it's a website or a chatbot or through email or whatever it is, you are far more likely to get the sale. And I think we're still stuck in that kind of old age of how do we interrupt people, and who's got the biggest ad in the newspaper and the loudest ad on radio. We're still yelling at our customers at an age where everyone's kind of tuned out to that because they've just got information overload. Always think about like holding a cup up to the Niagara Falls. I love that analogy. That's what trying to get information is like now. People are, there's that quote, people are drowning in information but starving for wisdom. And so as an authority or someone who knows your industry, regardless of what your business is, how do you be the person who curates that? How do you be the person who solves problems and actually distills that information and offers that wisdom and insight rather than just flooding people with more information and selling?
And it's really interesting. So there are some hurdles that people have to get across. Like one of the biggest ones I find with companies or businesses where you start to talk about this is they say, if I share that stuff, that's actually the stuff that makes me special, and then my competitors will steal it. Do you get that?
Look at us, Rachel.
Yeah, I know.
What do we do?
The more I give away, the more our business grows.
Same. I grew my business off the back of, just like you, because I know your story as well, off the back of just finding myself in as many situations as possible where I can add as much value as possible for free. That's how you grow. I mean, look at you with your Map It trainings, up and down the country. And I read some of the reviews and feedback you get, and what stands out to people is that they aren't hard sold at the end of it.
Yeah, I really want to make sure it's like that. And what we found with that too is it's about, because we talk a lot in Map It about the most important marketing message you have is trust. And if you don't have a good business in the first place, no matter how much marketing you do, it's not going to work. And I guess that's that core, right, going back to that communication side. I had a meeting with a client this morning, and he's got the most amazing customer service. He's got, huge customer service ethic. He thinks about and looks after his customers all the way through. And he talked this morning, he said, how can I make sure that I improve that pillar of building a brand that people trust? And I said, you don't need to in that regards, because you're already doing it. And I have a saying, which is you just need to be a little bit less shit than your competitors. That's all you got to be. And he's already doing that because his customer service ethic is actually better than his competitors. Now he just has to find a way to tell more people about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just had that experience with we've just brought a new bed,
Yes.
and because we're on holiday and I had time to explore it, I spent days researching and went into all the stores and chatted to people and
Beds are
ended up
important.
really important. You spend a lot of time in there, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and so it became like buying a car. Like I had to do
Mm.
all this research, and I spent ages, and I ended up completely confused. Like I didn't the product features and all the different types of
Mm.
beds and chiropractic range, and I just got completely lost in it. And actually, I couldn't even remember what bed we wanted in the end. We got so lost in the process.
Niagara Falls effect. Too much information.
Totally, way too
Yeah.
much information. I absorbed too much, and in the end, what got me across the line is there was a company that was, a good price range. Their service seemed really good. They had a guarantee on it, but it all sounded almost too good to be true. And I went to their Google reviews, and their Google reviews were a series of people saying, "Yes, we took the bed home. It wasn't quite right, and they picked it up for free and replaced it and did all this." And Heather, the person we were dealing with, was amazing and never asked any questions. And it was just that last step of validation, which you can't fake, right?
No, you
Businesses
can't
can't
fake
fake
it.
that. That was
Yeah.
what I was reading was a true, honest reflection of what the customers were saying, and that's what, in the end, is what got us. Not the fancy features, not the marketing we were getting from all the other larger companies. It was a small local retailer going, "That's good, honest customer service, and I trust you."
Yeah, because we've talked a lot over the years with our businesses and what's going on. I've been really open with you about the many mistakes I've made, and like natural marketer, like I'm always good at getting the message around. And I think the thing that now works is one, we have a service delivery that people can trust. So when people see us and hear our marketing, the experience ties in with what we're pushing. So that's really important. And then the other thing is I'm now talking in the right places. And I think those are the two things, in terms of communication. First, you've got to make sure that your business is good enough to talk about. Which is you working, like I guess with you're talking a lot about, hey, let's just make sure that once someone hits that website and gives us an email, that we make sure we're looking after them afterwards, and that your guides or whoever's working are going to look after those people. Because if we don't do that, no matter what I do, it's going to crash and burn.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is in terms of communication. And yes, we don't need to worry about what platform we use, but we need to make sure that we're talking to the right type of people in the right places.
And I think I 100% agree. And I think to achieve that, one of the things that I'm really, passionately sharing at the moment is that, and I know you agree with this, and I've heard you say it as well, is people are being told they need to be everywhere all the time. And what it's resulting in is people having a piss poor presence on a lot of different platforms. And actually that can do more harm than good for your business by being average on a whole lot of platforms. And so I'm really, for me, strategy is about, like, I'm always, my big thing that I champion is, strategy before tactics. Get this part right. But strategy for me is about choosing what not to do. It's about 100%. Doing fewer things more consistently. It's like, if you can just pick a couple of channels and actually master that rather than spreading yourself so thin, then you're more likely to be there. And that's what you're saying, is being in the right, you've got to be in the right place, and then you don't need to be in every place.
Yeah, and like it's interesting because I used to feel quite guilty about Instagram because we do digital. We teach people how to do digital. Instagram isn't where I've ever got my clients. And so I've always felt quite guilty about the fact that we don't have heaps of followers, that it's not heaps of engagement. And I am using it this year just to develop skills. Like I'm using it more, and definitely seeing that turn around. But it's kind of like my New Year's resolution this year was to no longer live under the weights of other people's expectations.
Yeah.
And what I realized as a business owner is I had a whole lot of expectations on myself as a marketing agency of what I was meant to do in terms of marketing, that I just have to turn away and say no, and remind my clients to do the same. Just because your competitors are really acing it on Facebook, for example, if you've actually found your niches on LinkedIn, well, then own your niche on LinkedIn. Don't feel like you've got to ace it on Facebook if you can't manage both platforms really well. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Totally. And I think we get carried away now. Like I still know local businesses who are smashing it on radio.
Me too.
Just think we get carried away with the latest thing in that new shiny object syndrome, where you're just constantly getting distracted. And I think achieving anything in business, and from all the discussions we've had, this is not my strong point, but staying focused is the biggest battle at the moment. Like the hardest thing to do, right? Is just stay focused on what you're actually trying to achieve and stick to that, because there is so much distraction now.
So much distraction. I struggle with it too. And I often say, I know you would do as well, that we're often working with business owners, direct with business owners who may have someone who can help them with marketing, but probably not a full-time marketing person. And I always say, look, we find it hard to try and fit the time in to do the marketing. I know for me, so I set myself a goal to schedule the entire year's social media by the end of January. I'm up to March for Facebook. I have done all my Instagram for the year. But it feels hard when you start it. Like, it's easy now, it's sorted. And it still will feel like I'm talking directly to you guys if you're listening to this and thinking, wow, I can't believe she wrote that in January and I'm watching this in April. How hurt am I? It will, if you've got the communication right, at every touch point, people feel like you're talking directly to them.
Yeah, and that's so important, right? That's like I've just run 6 months worth of marketing masterclasses with clients here in Nelson, Tasman, and it's the one thing that I just keep drilling home is if you're ever struggling to write an email, you're ever struggling to do a post, when people get in that state where they're stuck and they don't know what to say or how to share it, it's because your net is too wide. You're confused. You're second guessing what other people will think. You're doing all that. If you know your customer and you're completely honed in on who you're talking to, I don't have any trouble talking to you. I know you. I know what values we share. I know what we can bounce off, and this conversation is easy. Whereas if I was sitting in front of the camera by myself, just openly talking to everyone, I would be stuck. Right? I wouldn't know what to talk about. I'd be thinking whether I'm going to offend someone or whether they agree with that, or all these kind of things. We know that it's easier to communicate one-on-one, and then everyone gets really stuck when they're trying to write their website copy or do social media post or email, and it's because they're not sort of honed in and focused on exactly who they're talking to. And that comes from a place of scarcity. Like, it comes from the idea that by focusing, you'll lose something, which is like completely the opposite. If you're going back to that 3,000 commercial messages a day, if you're being boring, generic and safe, and then competing with 3,000 other commercial messages, you haven't got a hope of like getting through to people. You need to be absolutely deliberate and intentional about who you're talking to and what your tone is, because that's what gets the cut through. And, I always find the most useful analogy for me is like a dartboard. You aim for the bullseye and you always capture a whole lot of other stuff, but unless you know where you're throwing, how can you hit the board, right? You have to absolutely know what your bullseye is to capture the rest of it anyway.
Because I was thinking about that when you're talking about it and thinking, this is actually why I tell people never to fear having a highly competitive field. Like you and I know, like we're competitors. I've referred people to you where I've gone, actually, Johnny's the best person for this because you are the best person. And the whole idea with marketers I love is me getting away from this idea that we have to have these strongly competitive things. There are definitely marketers I don't love and I don't like, but there are a whole lot of people that I do love and like. But the cool thing with knowing what you do and what makes you special and communicating that to the people who need it is those people will have less of a choice to make. They will choose you, or they'll choose someone else that is communicating it in a different way. And you want the people that want to hear how you communicate it best, because then you've got a trust relationship with them and there's no problem.
Yeah, and that's why I think the authenticity is the only thing that really breeds trust. I think people's sort of bullshit radars are better than they ever have been, and so
I think so.
To take it online, I think people really notice that now, and they see it, and it breeds fear in people rather than trust. And that at the heart of it's in trust, and then authenticity is what I think gets the cut through. Now we're seeing that, and that's why I'm excited. The combination of things we're talking about, like stopping selling and starting helping people, and moving from being boring and generic to being authentic. Like, to me, the future of marketing is really exciting. I can see
me
more
too.
competitive and the more noisy it gets, the more that good products and good businesses and honest and authentic businesses have a better shot at winning. And the combination of then small business now having, through digital channels, having access to the same tools essentially as large businesses means it's wide open at the moment. And what an awesome proposition for people. It's why I'm so excited, like you, and passionate about sharing it. Like, what's the silver bullet for my marketing this year? It's like, be you, be yourself.
Yes. Yeah, it's really interesting because I made that decision last year to go, actually, I'm just going to show up. And there was quite a lot of fear involved in it. Like, so I was like, what if I show up and no one likes it?
Yeah. And
there probably are people who don't like it. But I don't see them. I only see the people that do like it.
Yeah.
And you develop this group of people who become your fans, which is amazing.
Totally. I've got a friend or a family member actually who helps musicians, helps market musicians and sell their music online. And I said to him, what do you do when you get a really bad musician? Like, how does that work? Because you obviously want to market them. And he said, in the online world where he works right across the world, he said, if you are playing air guitar in your undies in your lounge, I can find you an audience. You know, he said there is an audience and a niche for everybody now, and we're not limited to the mainstream local town anymore. You've got choice in your services and your goods, and yet people are still bringing that kind of old mentality of scarcity, of competition. They're bringing it to this new world of marketing, and they're not getting results and they're not getting traction. And they'll blame the fact that it moves fast and the landscape keeps changing, the platforms keep changing, but actually at the core, they're bringing that old style into a new world where it no longer works, and they're still yelling at people and they're still hard selling, and the world's moved on. And I think the businesses who get that are the ones who are going to thrive in this new era. I
100% agree. And it's interesting because obviously we're different generations. And do you call yourself Gen Y or millennial?
Gen Y. Yeah.
Gen Y. So you're Gen Y. My kids are Gen Z. And I find that they are even more hyper aware of this. Like as soon as they see any brand that's trying to push a message and do it in a way that they're storytelling, but it's a lack of authenticity, they completely switch off the brand and they'll ditch it. And they also don't like change for the sake of change. Like they stopped wanting to use Spark when it went from Telecom to Spark, because they didn't like the way that they transitioned the logos. They're like, we won't use them. They don't use Spark. Wow. Like they just opt out, which I find really fascinating for me to watch as a marketer. They also don't like the fact much that I'm a marketer, even though one of my daughters works for us and she's amazing and she's a natural marketer herself. They all are really good at it, but they don't tend to like the idea of marketing, because for them it is all about building a community, building a conversation, building trust with people, and marketing, that word for them they associate with selling, which is a bit snide and not quite right.
Tell them you're a communicator.
Yeah, I should start saying that I'm the communicator. Maybe they'll like me better as a person.
Honestly, I'm just feeling it more and more and more. I mean, marketing, internet marketing's always had that because of that, because of where the industry went. And I think it is hard for people to trust marketers now, and people understand that whilst, for many businesses, having access to more information and data on their customers is amazing and so useful, that it also comes with huge risks. And the fact that there is fear now that people are being listened to, and the data on them is so accurate that they don't trust some people that have it in their hands. And I understand that. For me, I mean, I love that the future of marketing is more relevant. I don't actually want to
me too.
Services I'm not interested in, or businesses that I'll never deal with. So I like the fact that it's becoming more relevant, and I rate that. But I also understand why people don't trust marketers. You and I have talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
I understand why there's a lack of trust in the industry, and it's because there's been this huge knowledge gap in digital marketing, which is why you and I focus so much on education, because it's not just about services anymore. People actually, you can't outsource all of your marketing. You have to understand it as well. You have to be able to live and breathe this right throughout your business from start to finish. And so you can't opt out of this anymore. You actually have to educate and upskill yourself as well.
But also, if you're the person that people are going to see when they meet you face to face, whether it's because you're doing a tour or you're selling something, you're working with them, they need to have seen your face. They need to have seen how you talk and all those things. So video, obviously, like I know that you have got all the gear, Johny. 2020 is your year for the gear to be used.
Yes.
You're here now.
It's right here. It's all in
Yay! I bought a really cool thing. Bree from Simple Life Social showed me this cool thing. It's Pivo something. I've just bought one. But you put it with your smartphone. It's got facial recognition, so you can walk around and it follows you around.
Oh wow. Cool.
So I bought that. I've got another gadget. But
I'll probably buy it too.
And then it can just sit in your bag for a year. It'll be great. But showing up, like I think that's one of the hardest things for business owners is to understand, or people, is actually showing the face, showing those people. That is that communication, because I think that I love social media. There's so many things I love about it, but I see there's a growing number of social anxieties, especially in the younger generations, where people haven't got those natural face-to-face networks, where people are opting, like I'll say to my kids, oh, you haven't seen your friends much these holidays. And they'll say, oh no, we talk to them every day. I'm like, well, where? On our phones. And there's this disconnect between real life and online life. And so giving us an opportunity as brands to try and break those barriers down by showing our faces on digital platforms and on a website, having videos, having events, having ways, being on radio, all those things help break down those barriers that help people connect with a real person. And we get the human aspect of the brand as opposed to the selling aspect.
Totally, and I think we're seeing that whole, there's lots of research now to prove that with the reason chatbots are on the rise is because people don't want to talk to people anymore.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We opt for the self-checkout over the operator lane now.
My kids definitely opt in for the self-checkout. If they've got to talk to the operator, they're like, I don't want to go there anymore. They didn't have enough self-checkouts.
I think there's a huge loss in that.
I do too.
My kind of passion's merging around the intergenerational connection and marketing and storytelling as well. And so I think, I really think we're losing that. We're living independent of other generations now as well, which is kind of social change. We're all working harder than ever. We're busier than ever, and increasingly, I think we're glued to and slaves to our phones. And I think that it is a big issue, and that's why marketing and technology companies do have a lot to answer for in that space. I go to conferences all around the world, and the last sort of couple of years where I've been at technology conferences, at the heart of the conversation has been this feeling that marketing is about to have the big tobacco moment, where marketing and technology companies are about to be held accountable for fueling addiction, for designing addiction.
The dopamine hit you get from grabbing your phone and checking messages and saying something, and then the other side, when you're messaging or shouting out or calling out for recognition and you don't get it, and the depths that you get from it, I have to be on digital platforms for our business, and I have to help people use them because I know it helps them get customers. But there is such a divide in me from that to what it, as a society we're doing by growing this and trying to find a way to bring in that human to human connection is, to me, is the thing that is driving me as a marketer, as a communicator, to help people bridge that. Because if we can find ways to get people to feel more human to human connection on whatever platform we're using, I think as a brand communicator, we're doing it right.
Yeah, and I think you raise an amazing point there, because it's also important. I think this whole concept of B2B and B2C is so outdated.
It's gone.
Like it's human to human communication, right?
It is human to human.
It doesn't matter whether you're selling to a business, you're always selling to a person. And so I don't use those terms. I don't like to say we're B2B, because in our business we deal with people. I'm a person, our team of people, we're all humans. We all want, we all want to like and enjoy and value the clients we work with, and that's an ethos that I know you and I both share. It's like, your clients should be people you want to go for a coffee with, and the acting test for me is when the phone rings, do I go, oh, or do I answer? And you want people in your life, and you want to do business with people who you want to answer their calls, and you want to go for coffee, and you want to share good times and celebrate the successes, and actually that makes business so much easier. But to achieve that, you have to be authentic from the outset, right? You have to, I can't bullshit my way into that, because when I end up with the wrong people, there's no point me putting on a suit and pretending I'm corporate at all. No. Inevitably end up with the wrong people in your business, and that makes doing business really hard and tiring, actually. And so that's why it's like people need to start thinking end to end. And if you're authentic and real up front, then you will draw in the right people, because people are attracted to that, and they're going to be people you get along with, which I think is how you build community. It's how you build that tribe,
And they stay for longer, and they refer to people that are like them, which means they're more for you, and it just grows and snowballs.
Totally.
And I think that's the best. Now, Johny, I actually literally could talk to you all day about this. We haven't even talked about both of our dream desire to own a cafe, even though we know that how hard everyone works. And
oh, wow. Well, hang on. Big news. We got one.
No. Are you really?
You heard it here first. It happened.
Are you really?
It happened.
Is it really? Because we're going to be down in Nelson in a couple of weeks. We'll have to come in.
It happened. So we've brought I won't tell you where it is
shocking.
yet. This is going to be public, but and we're not opening till next summer. But yes, we have brought a hospitality venture, and it happened. I've been waiting to tell you.
That is awesome. However, you guys are going to do it together, are you?
No, I've got a partner in the business, and we're putting, we're hopefully designing it in such a way that we're reasonably hands off.
All right, cool. I think it's hilarious that you're doing it. Now I feel like we need to start doing our mussel fritter stand to compete,
Yeah.
But I think that's awesome. So I could literally talk about your day. I could, and I think it would be intensely interesting, at least for us two. But do you sort of tell people kind of what you do and if you've got a speciality and how they can get hold of you?
Sure. Yeah. So as you probably picked up, my brain goes all over the show now, and our work does too. And so what I love doing is getting alongside businesses who are struggling with their marketing and they don't feel like they're hitting the right notes in terms of their brand and their communications. And they just, I often end up with businesses who know they've got growth potential, but they're really confused about how to take that next step. And they know that inherently what they don't need a whole lot more marketing services. They don't even necessarily need to market harder. There's other things that they need to work on, and that's what's holding them back. That's why they've got their foot on the brake. That's how a lot of our clients often go, I want to grow, but I've got my foot on the brake and I'm not sure why. That's because there's things that need to be sorted out. And I love getting alongside those businesses and really partnering with them. We share that ethos as well around, you don't want to just be an agency for them. You want to feel like you're part of their team, get involved in their business and not be boxed into marketing. So that's the type of clients I'm working with. We're using, we really looked at our ideal client last year and we thought, what the type of people we want to work with are those who would consider themselves brave. We want to work with brave businesses who are ready to take a leap and pursue growth, and we'll partner in that. And so, that's our business, and the marketing and the services and everything come off the back of that. But that's what's kind of at the core. So ShiftOn, and we're based in the most beautiful place in the world, as you know.
Yes, it's gorgeous.
And the easiest way to get hold of me is probably through LinkedIn. But for our business, it's www.shifton.co.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you so much. This was great. I feel I'm doing this basically for myself because I love it so much. So, so thank you so much, Johny.
Thank you. It's been awesome chatting.
Cool.